Welcome back. As always, it is your host, your friend, your mate, Arachnid Soul, coming to you today with something a little bit different. We're talking about AEW, and we're talking about some changes that I would make if they let me take over the company for just 3 months. That's all I want, Tony. Give me 3 months. But before we do that, do me a favor, smash that thumbs up and subscribe if you have not. I recently watched AEW Full Gear 2022, and I sat down today and I said, I'm going to review all of these matches one by one, and I got through 2 matches and I said, I don't feel like doing this. So I said, let me make a video, but as someone who's pretty knowledgeable, I would say, about professional wrestling, as somebody who's basically watched every other professional wrestling company and watched WCW and WWF and everything else growing up, changes that I would make to this product. I'm going to try to be as constructive as I possibly can because it would be so easy for me to go the other way with this video. So let's imagine that Tony Khan, easy for me to say, calls me tomorrow and says, I want you to take over this company, to run this company for me for the next 3 months, make whatever changes you want to. What are the basic changes that I would make as someone who went to the first AEW pay-per-view, as somebody who watched this AEW pay-per-view, as someone who's pretty knowledgeable about pro wrestling? The biggest change that I would make is I would go to each position that needs filling, and I would find seasoned vets from pro wrestling to fill these positions, people who have done this stuff before over a prolonged period of time and know what they are doing. I would not think I would have all of the answers. With that said, I would try to filter my ideas through the better judgment of people like Arn Anderson and Jeff Jarrett, and I don't know, but there's brains out there you can reach out to. First of all, the roster is way too big, and there's not as many talented people on the roster as there are people on the roster. I have good news for these wrestlers. I'm going to honor the rest of their contracts. We are going to pay them out. Unfortunately, they're either going to be wrestling on house shows or not wrestling at all, but they will have my blessing to go wrestle anywhere else that they want to for the remainder of their AEW contracts. We're probably going to have to cut half, maybe 2/3 of the roster. I mean, we have 2 hours of TV one night, an hour of TV another night, so we only have 3 hours of TV every week, and we have over 100 wrestlers probably on the roster. There's managers left and right. Some of these managers are great. Prince Nana, I think you're great. We can find something for him to do. Some of them, again, being constructive, don't want to mention any names. Maybe there's something you could do somewhere else. We do need people to man the merchandise stands at the events. Also, there are way too many championships. Everyone has a belt, and I think AEW fans will agree with me when I say if you were in AEW for any 3-year period since the beginning of this company and you have not captured a championship, something is wrong with you. Everyone has a belt. Someone is coming out with a belt in every match. There's a million AEW belts, and then also because they've opened the forbidden door that they were the first people to open, that certainly Ring of Honor and Impact Wrestling did not have open for well over a decade previously. You've got guys coming in from New Japan. There's guys coming in from Ring of Honor, which doesn't exist anymore. There's guys coming in from Lucha Libre AAA down in Mexico with belts. Everybody's got belts, trios belts, tag belts, interim belts, women's belts, men's belts, every kind of belt. I'm surprised they don't have a 3-way dance belt in the company. Somebody's got an Owen Hart tribute tournament belt. I mean, it's just, there's a women's Owen belt. There's too many belts. There should be an AEW World Champion. There should be AEW World Tag Team Champions. If you want to have an AEW World Television Champion, fine. And then an AEW Women's Championship. That's it. That's all you should have. And I'm being generous even there because, again, there will be cuts. A lot of the cuts will be made to the women's roster. For some reason, there is this feeling that in professional wrestling now, you have to have a women's roster. And if you're going to have a women's roster, Instead of going out and finding 5 or 6 really talented women, almost like what TNA did, you start. It's people like Angel Williams, it's Gail, it's Awesome Kong, it's ODB, it's Jackie Moore. No, instead of that, you just bring in a bunch of women. Thunder Rosa is great. You keep her. You keep Britt Baker. I'm sure there's a bunch of women on the roster, some of these women that they've brought over from Stardom that maybe you send back to Stardom. It's not worth it. People aren't watching. The ratings aren't there. The matches aren't good. Again, we will continue to pay you the rest of your contract, plus you can go wrestle anywhere else right now immediately without any pushback from the office, and you will get a paycheck from them as well. Another change that needs to be made desperately. Let's see if we can get the genie back in the bottle. This should have been one of the big things from the beginning of the company. These referees in the ring, these officials need to be respected. When they see nonsense, they need to ring the bell and throw this stuff out. There is no control. The referees in this company are basically there just to count the 3. And then AEW tell you, well, this match is a no DQ match. As opposed to what? As opposed to every match that we've seen in this company that's clearly no DQ because the referee's not enforcing any rules. There's people running in, which is another change I would make. Stop doing it. You would not see that on our television. The announce team. I know this is going to be horrible because I'm the guy who just said I'm going to give all of these jobs to people who are seasoned vets. Taz, okay, gonna keep him. Jim Ross, okay, gonna keep him. Shivani, I don't think you need Shivani. And Excalibur, who I saw 20 years ago in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, he's not a horrible commentator. You don't need him. You need a 2-man booth. And maybe at some point, I don't know, JR says, well, I only want to do an hour. Guess who's gonna fill in? You hear that opening bell. As always, it is the best damn pro wrestling announcer. That's right. It would be me and Taz in the booth, like me and Tenay. I'd probably bring in Mike Tenay at some point, but like Taz and Tenay back in the old TNA days. Great announce team, knowledgeable, and we would make sense and the product would make sense because that would be the umbrella concept for my AEW. This company will make sense. Things will make sense as opposed to nothing making sense. I almost feel like back in the day with TNA or with ECW, and you would hear those ECW chants or those TNA chants, it was chants of, hey, this is some cool stuff that is trademark of this company. I feel like when you hear some of the AEW chants, it's more like, wow, pro wrestling was this thing that made sense for so long, and now we're seeing nonsensical stuff or over-the-top stuff or stuff that's going too long, and that's so AEW indicative that that's when we're going to chant AEW. That's not a compliment. Any noise from the fans is not positive noise. Talking about positive, stay positive, Arachnid Soul. Try to stay constructive. The production is great. Am I going to change the set? Yes, because I think the set with those 2 tunnels looks like the set that TNA Impact had for all those years. When we talk about keeping track of these records, it would make sense if the wrestling and everything in the company made sense. Many of these wrestlers also need to be sent back to some kind of reputable pro wrestling school. Send them, you're working with New Japan. Send them to the dojo. There are places, there are schools. They can fine-tune things. They can teach you how to compete in this sport and be good. And a lot of these guys are not ready for television. If you don't know how to hit the ropes, if you don't know how to throw a punch, I'm sorry, you're not ready for television. For guys who can't talk, they shouldn't be talking. Get them a manager. For guys who can talk, give them airtime. Let them talk. Let's figure out who these people are. Just because it's AEW, everything's in excess. The weapons, the blood, the wrestlers. We have more of everything than we need. Another thing that needs to be changed in AEW, and this needs to be changed yesterday. There are wrestlers in this company who do not take pro wrestling seriously, who do not even consider themselves pro wrestlers. We need people who take this seriously. The people in the crowd, these aren't wrestlers. They don't care if this thing goes up in flames tomorrow. And I'm not talking about AEW, I'm talking about pro wrestling. But the pro wrestlers need to care, and they need to think about not only respecting the people who paved the way, who handed this thing off to them, but they need to leave this thing in better condition than it was when it was handed to them for the next generation and the generation after that. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about some other things that I would change. Obviously, match types. Before we go, we got to talk about that. Singles matches, tag team matches, occasional battle royales, occasional tournaments, nothing on a football field, nothing in Matt Hardy's backyard in the lake, no magic, none of this nonsense. We need referees who are serious, wrestlers who are serious, people in the office who are serious. And I can tell you right now, there's a lot of AEW fans that are going to watch anything you're going to give them. So somebody's going to say to me, well, you're going to change all this stuff and the fans are going to go away. A lot of these fans, whether it's good or bad, are there. So why not give them something good and at the same time give people who might be flipping through the channels something good to watch? I could go on for another 45 minutes. Did I keep it constructive? I hope I wasn't too negative. I hope I didn't hurt anyone's feelings. I hope that I didn't attack any of the wrestlers individually based on anything besides what they're presenting on television. Let me know down below in the comment section. I have a feeling this is going to be another video where people get upset. Please don't fight. Please keep it cordial down below. As always, it has been your friend, your mate, your pal, your confidant, I forgot the line, and all of that other stuff. I'm going to come back because I'm sure when I stop recording, I'm going to think of another 15 things. Those are the big things. I wish the best for AEW because wrestling fans are watching it, and I wish the best for pro wrestling. Oh, I'm signing out. Let me do my old sign out and then we'll get out of here. It has been your boy, Arachnid Soul, intellectual, voracious, and passionate, and I will catch you, my friend. Seriously, please comment down below. Later.